everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you have enjoyed the Route 66 series that I put together. It includes 9 videos of our trip from Santa Monica, California all the way to St. Louis, Missouri and the Gateway Arch. It was a lot of fun putting together. If you haven't watched it, please seek out the episodes. I will put the links in the show notes below. And today's episode is a little different, sort of a follow-up to everything that I've learned and was able to revisit when I put the videos together. And these are things that I wish I had known or looked into before I traveled down Route 66. These are things that I wish I had either known about or investigated a little bit more before heading out on Route 66. Let's get to it. First thing, camera work. I am so sorry. I didn't want to draw attention to it when I was making the videos, but I am fully aware that my camera work for these videos was not the best. And while I can sit here and make excuses all day long, that is something that was desperately brought to my attention the minute I started putting these videos together. And basically, those of you that don't know, I used to do a lot of events on video and like live events that were more stationary and heavily using tripods. So was so used to that. So then you get me out here trying to put together a video of our trip, and I tend to, a lot of it, all like 99% of it is handheld, but since this was all new to me, I tend to want to be in the moment more so than just looking through the viewfinder every minute. So you get, the camera was crooked a lot during these videos, and for that I apologize. So that is definitely something that I will be looking out for in the future. Way more steady shots. I need to slow down my filming. I do a lot of pans that go too fast. Some stuff I was able to slow down in the editing process, but so my camera work definitely needs to be paid more attention to. The second thing is related more towards the actual traveling, and that was, I wish I had not planned so many miles per day. There were days where we were doing an extraordinary amount of miles, because on paper all this stuff looks great and very doable. And then you get out in the real world and you're poking around, you're taking a lot longer at things than you thought. You're discovering things along the way. Like I said, you're poking around. And I, for one, am a major sort of, once I'm out and about, I'm dragging my butt because I'm finding cool things. I want to take it in. I don't know when I'll be back. And so once we had gotten out of California and we got into Arizona and New Mexico and Texas, I really felt like I had booked way too many miles to accomplish, especially in the early parts of the trip. I had pre-planned hotel stays, motel stays, and that slowly, at that point you felt the obligation to get to these destinations. So we would have to skip things, we would have to sort of pare down our list halfway through the day, or sometimes very early on when we realized we weren't going to accomplish things. The problem with that is you're obviously adding more days to your trip. We had already done 10 days, and and while this was a great trip for a lot of reasons, and a circumstance that might never happen again, which I'll address sort of at the end of the video, tacking on more days means more hotel stays, this and that. So it's a double-edged sword. So you could slow it down, but you just realize you're going to be spending a little bit more money than you probably originally planned. If I had it to do it again, if I could do it again, I would do 135, 150 miles a day tops, and then just plan on almost 2 full weeks of the route. That's to take more in than what we saw. And we saw a lot, don't get me wrong, but there were things that we had missed, things that we had to drive past. We didn't spend a lot of time in some of these places that I had hoped. Number 3, planning travel days more efficiently. Now, along with slowing down the miles covered, The other thing that we ran into was if you're driving at night, most of these places are closed that you want to see, gift shops and stuff. Some big stops along the way. We ended up driving through the desert at night, so we were missing meteor crater stops and things like that. Some pretty big monumental shops along the way. All those are closed at night, and they closed, at least when we went in July, they closed early. And the other thing, because someone brought to the attention in the comments of one of the videos, is that a lot of places are closed on Sundays. That would be a good day to sort of really slow it down, take it in, because you're not going to be able to see a lot along the way on Sundays. Again, I had a very hard time sort of figuring out why certain stores were closed when they were, because there were days where it was like, it seemed like it was a weekday day and places were closed. And I get, these are extenuating circumstances traveling this time of year. But I also ran into a few people that were shocked that so many places were closed, because this is, no matter what, tourist season, and things had lightened up a little bit over the summer in terms of COVID times. So I would have probably slowed it down on Sundays to take it easy, and then hold off on major mileage on picking up on Monday to see some sights. Which brings me to my next point, budgeting the time of day, how many hours on the road. We found ourselves driving at night quite a bit, and that's not ideal for me for a lot of reasons. I just don't like it, and again, you feel like you're missing out on stuff. So I would probably have done it to where my day ended at like 4, got a motel or a hotel, and then just hung around whatever respective town we were in, then eat and pick up the next day with the travels. So there was that. I don't even know what number we're at. Let's say number 5. Eating. I did not partake in enough eating stops along the route because I was so concerned with making up miles and getting places. We would end up eating fast food a lot, which is fine on a trip like this, but I never got the full benefit of eating at some of these, sort of must stops. There's a lot of diners, drive-ins, and dives places along the route. I felt like I didn't embrace that fully, and we were doing a lot of like snacks in the car and stuff like that. So I wish I would have sort of slowed down the trip, and we ended up slowing down halfway through. By the time we got to New Mexico, it became very apparent that there was a lot more to do, and so we opted for an extra night in New Mexico to do some more stuff. And I think that we ended up stretching it out another day along the route. But I would have probably added at least 2 more days to the trip, especially in the middle. There was in Oklahoma, there's a lot to do. New Mexico, like I said. Kansas, I would have slowed down a little bit more, but that's still a one-day thing. Like that's less than 13 miles a stretch, but I would have probably doubled the time there, taken like 4 hours instead of 2. So yeah, there's a lot of places to eat that I didn't go to. I wish I would have had more than just the usual on the road. So yeah, I would have made a better attempt to stop at some eating places. Number 5 or 6, whatever we're at, I wouldn't have booked so many busy activities. I have what I feel, I've never been officially diagnosed, but I have really bad ADD. I can't sit still, especially on a trip like this. This sort of snowballed almost as a once-in-a-lifetime thing on how this unfolded, because in a lot of ways we didn't have a hard end time. It was sort of open-ended the way the trip was planned. Things would surface as the week would go on, but originally when it was planned, it's a rare moment where we didn't have obligations really pressing us that we couldn't take a week to do it. My wife didn't want to go, so it was just me and my son, and it was sort of like, woohoo, we can do whatever we want in terms of places to see. And I have very eclectic tastes on, wacky things and motels and this and that. So it sort of played into my strengths. And the original plan was to not book any motels until we were in these towns, and then we would find one and go from there. But people strike fear in me and made me think about, well, maybe I should have a cushion. So then I booked a few early on, and I felt like that was already hindering me from what I wanted to do in terms of winging it. And I understand that that's a risky situation. But looking back now, hindsight is always 20/20, as they say. I felt like I would have gotten away with it. It wasn't an insanely busy time of year. The motels that we stayed at were not at capacity most of the time. And when in doubt, there's always like a chain motel nearby that more than likely would have accommodated us. So when we did these, going through these states, California, I couldn't get out fast enough just because that's where I had lived for a majority of my life. I spent 23 years there. So in a lot of ways I felt like seen that, done that. And of course, midday on our first day, traffic gets really bad, and I just wanted to go. But the reality was, from the get-go, California could have been split into 2 days because I was going down, staying as much as to Route 66 as I could, and I felt like, wow, there's parts of this in California that I hadn't even seen. And I claimed, I live there and blah, blah, blah. So even that, from the get-go, I probably could have done 2 nights just in California, my home state. The problem was I was so aggravated because we had left so late in the day. We were already behind schedule, and we were stopping at the Santa Monica Pier because I wanted to start documenting it from the beginning. And then that led us to getting stuck in traffic, and it started to drag, and I just wanted to go and get out. So by the time we get to Arizona, the day 2, then we realized, wow, there's a lot to do. We're not seeing half of it because, again, we had major milestones to hit because I had booked a few hotels, and it was sort of in that weird window where it was too close to cancel, so you don't get your refund back and this and that. So I would have spent a minimum of 2 days in just about every state. I think that would have been ideal. I never made it to Illinois, so this is all based on me going from Santa Monica to St. Louis, Missouri. Another thing I would have planned better and looked at better is paying more attention to the routes. I had tour books. I had the Route 66 app, but when we came out of the petrified forest, I thought I knew better, and I'm like, I didn't consult any map. I didn't have the GPS on, and we pull out of there, and we were at I believe the south end of the petrified forest. The sign for the freeway said Los Angeles and Flagstaff, I believe it said. And I'm like, well, we're not going back that way. So I turned left, and that screwed me up in a way that I wasn't on Route 66. I was really in the middle of nowhere. If stuff would have happened, it could have got bad because this road went on forever and there was no cars around. I don't think I had a signal. It was crazy. And my son fell asleep, so I didn't have anyone to talk to or be like, oh my God, what's going on? Got us in the same direction that we needed to go, but we bypassed El Dorado Motel, I think it was. Anyway, we ended up missing that, and that was a bummer. The other thing I would have done is had a little bit more cash on me, just to have. Buying things with a card for little transactions here and there. I know that most people don't have those hang-ups. For some reason I do. And also, there are some things you come across that are more donation-based. There was in Oklahoma, Harley, he runs a whole thing that's donation-based. He'll sing songs and play for you, and then you get to run around his store, and he makes his whole living just by being a sort of a Route 66 personality, and he has donation jars.
Guys, you're welcome to take all the photos you want. You can go any place in my building and take photos. Nothing is off limits other than my guitars, and you can take photos of those. My name is Harley, and these are my donation jars.
All right.
How do you like the way I do that?
Hey, you got to.
I tell you for sure,
Yeah.
I'm the meanest, biggest bastard son of a bitch on Route 66 and everybody's favorite stop.
And luckily, we had scrounged up $12 in cash to give this man. It was worth every penny. But there's stuff like that. The tour, we did a tour of the Coleman Theater in Miami, Oklahoma, and that was also donation-based. Lovely tour. But donation-based. So you want to be, you just want to throw some bucks in. It's good to have cash. I didn't do too bad, but there were times when I was flying blind with nothing except my card, and God forbid you get card trouble, stolen, whatever, it gets locked up. You're not going to be able to do much. So I would have made a better attempt to carry a little bit more cash on me, for sure. I think that's it for what I've learned. It's a lot about budgeting time better. I'm not great at. I'm more of a react now, ask questions later, and that comes with a lot of good and a lot of bad. Looking back, there's a lot of stuff I would have done different, but also there's a lot of stuff I would have kept the same. I refused to beat myself up over certain things, and it was very early on in the trip. Even my son turns to me and he says, let's focus on what we are doing and not what we didn't do. And that sort of set the tone for the rest of the trip. I didn't want to bog myself down and beat myself up over, oh shoot, we didn't do this, and oh man, there was a little bit of that. I wish we would have did this, I wish we would have did that, but I didn't beat myself up over it. And we just had a great time. And do I wish I would have held the camera straighter at parts? Sure. Do I wish I would have paid more attention to some of the technical aspects of putting a video together for a trip like this? Sure. But at the same time, I'd never done this trip before. I was trying to be in the moment versus trying to be a filmmaker a lot of the time. So that's why the videos have sort of a rough fly by the seat of your pants look, and in a lot of ways it works. I like it. I would have cut down on the amount of time. That was probably the biggest thing. I wish I would have cut down on the amount of miles we covered, because to really take it in. But I had no problems traveling in July. The weather was not crazy, and there were days where it was blazing hot, but it was fine. It was fine. The crowds, there were not many crowds until we got to Amarillo, Texas, and the Cadillac Ranch was the very first thing that had more than 20 people at it. But a lot of it is very quiet along the route. It's not as heavily trafficked as you would think, unless I'm doing it wrong. But you walk into some of these places and there's nobody there, and the people that work there are very happy to see you. A lot of friendly people. So that's the stuff that I wish I would have known. Now I'd like to talk about a little bit about what was awesome on this trip. And I have not been a big time people person for a lot of my life. I'm known to talk, but I don't seek out a lot of stuff and seek out speaking to strangers specifically. There's a vibe on Route 66 that's just everybody's making this sort of commitment or whatever to do some of this, and so it's a lot of people. It's a bucket list type of thing. It's some people haven't done it in years. People like me have never done it, and you run into all sorts of people that are just super excited. A lot of friendly people, which is more than I can say in a lot of aspects of regular life. Very talkative. Some people I ran into had lived in some of these states and had never done parts of Route 66 in their area. I ran into a guy from Oklahoma who had never done the stretch of Route 66 that runs through his state. And so there we were, chatting about, I had questions, and he really didn't have a lot of answers because he said he had never done it. But there was a lot of cool people along the way. A lot of people that own the shops and the stores and the art galleries are awesome. And you have to sort of know when you go in to any of these things that don't just, buy something and go. They're going to chat with you. They want to tell you about the history. And don't roll your eyes. Don't be annoyed. Embrace it. I mean, these people, it's their livelihood in a lot of ways. And they're just what I like to jokingly say is it's nice to hang out with these laid back country folks. And there's some truth to that, but there was a gentleman his name is Bob Crocodile Lyle. He owns an art gallery in Texas, and he was awesome. He's the one that said that I'm traveling way too many miles in a day. Anyway, he had a phenomenal art studio, and we were there. We had the passport thing to get stamps along the way, and he was showing us around his shop. He was telling us about the tours that he does and how business has been down. Introduced us to his 2 dogs that he has there. It was, there's a lot of that. A lot of people want to tell you, it's not just go in and go. And we were there for, I don't know, probably 25, 30 minutes hearing it, and it was a great, he's one of those guys now. I spent 30 minutes with him on a trip, and I'm never going to forget the guy. I'm never going to forget his art studio. He had these phenomenal watercolors from another artist named Peter Morris that I couldn't stop staring at. So when I ended up coming home, I ordered one from him. It's a Santa Monica sign, the pier sign, that certain pieces speak to you, certain things speak to you, and that spoke to me. I lived in California for 23 years. We started our Route 66 trip there at the pier, and I'm on this trip, and it just sort of summed up everything that was going on right at that moment. So I picked up that. There's a lot of people. There's a gentleman and his son in Oklahoma. When we're at the Big Blue Whale, he had seen my license plates from California, and I told him what we were doing, and he was all excited and wants to do that with his kid one day. And we ended up chatting for 25 minutes or so, just about life and things going on and how fast life moves. And I'm there with my 16-year-old son, and his kid was like 4 or 5, and I was like, my son was that age too. It was exciting. A lot of cool people. Oatman, great stop. I had no problems with any of the places that we stopped at, but it was all good. So yeah, that's it. The good, the bad. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment below if you have any hints, tips, tricks, or ideas. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to interact with people that watch the channel. Don't forget, I have 9 other videos based on the actual events that we did, broken down sort of by the day on the road. Feel free to watch that. I also have a getting started sort of Route 66, what to look out for when you're getting started. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.